The missing TikToker. Alexis Sharkey was an average girl striving to become an influencer. She was married to Thomas Sharkey III. Alexis was 26 and Thomas is 49 years old. Out of the blue, Thomas contacted Alexis's mother and told her her daughter had went missing. Her mother took to Facebook and begged for anyone that knows something of her daughter's whereabouts to come forward. That same day, a naked body had been found overnight, laying in a ditch just 12 minutes from her apartment. What people didn't know was that Alexis had filed for divorce. But when that was discovered, along with Thomas's criminal record, people started to suspect him more and more. He then started posting pictures and stories about how much he misses her. Some buy it, but others have sent him death threats. For now, people have been rallying behind justice for Alexis, while her case is still under heavy investigation.
I don't know, another video for another day. Alright, well thanks for tuning in. Bye guys.
The battle for the tallest statue in the world. In 1991, the world's tallest statue was erected in Japan, called the Sendai Daikanon, who is the Buddhist goddess of mercy. It stands at 330 feet, or 100 meters. This happens to be the smallest statue on the list, and it's over double the size of the most famous statue in the world, the Statue of Liberty in New York. By 1993, Japan's world record was broken by the Buddha himself, also built in Japan. It was the exact same height, was set on a 33-foot or 10-meter pedestal, but its world record stood until 2008, when who could have guessed it? Another Buddha statue was erected in Myanmar at 380 feet, or 115.8 meters. But in that very same year, another Buddha in China called the Spring Temple was finally finished at 420 feet, or 128 meters, which actually held the tallest statue in the world for 10 years until 2018, a whopping 597 foot tall, or 182 meter tall statue of, I'm gonna mess this up, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. This is in India, and this person is known as a unifier in India, where most of his actions brought them peace, rule, independence, and without his tireless work in India, they would not be a rising superpower right now. And this statue, compared to the Statue of Liberty, which is tiny, and it's the largest statue in the US, but the US is known for doing things big. Do better, America. Top 3 close calls with death. Number 3. A military recruit is learning how to properly throw a hand grenade. His sweaty palms get the best of him, and he releases too early. His trainer's expert ability allows him to notice his mistake, nearly instantly shoving the recruit over a barrier, and jumps on top of him, in turn, saving both their lives. Number 2. Aside from being dumb enough to park so close to the highway, this driver opens his door without checking for oncoming traffic, causing another car to slam into his door. If he was this dumb, just 2 seconds sooner, he would have been a human crayon colored all over the highway. And number 1. A family was just casually sitting in their living room, when out of seemingly nowhere, a tree falls on their house, caving in their roof. Their dog went running, and after the video, they rushed to find him. Believe it or not, it was their extremely sturdy fridge that saved them. The tail end of the collapsed tree hit it, and rolled off the path that would have left these shoes squished underneath it. Also, nobody was hurt, and yes, they also found their dog Gizmo unharmed. Time out. Commercial break. Only 7% of you guys are subscribed. Help me change that. 92.4 of you guys subscribe right now while you're watching the video. That way you never miss one of these. Also, feel free to join the Discord down below. Alright, commercial break over. Top 5 rare photos from history. Number 5. This is Stonehenge during its reconstruction. Most people don't know, the Stonehenge we see today isn't standing the same way it was discovered. Number 4. This is a young Marine whose picture was taken on March 8th, 1965, as he landed in Da Nang, Vietnam. A search was made out to find if he was still alive. Surprisingly, he did make it back alive and unharmed, but sadly, he passed September 8th, 2020. Number 3. A rare look at an 8-year-old boy's first reaction to a TV in 1948. Number 2. One of the oldest known photos of a Klansman dressed up. Lots of Confederate soldiers were banned from owning guns for backstabbing the US, so they carried spiked clubs instead. And number 1. These are the relatives waiting for the Titanic survivors in Southampton in 1912. Many knew if their loved ones made it out alive from the major New York newspapers spreading information quickly. But still, many loved ones showed up just in case they managed to slip through. Off the ship, 75% of women on board made it out, 50% of children made it out, and only 17% of men made it out alive. 17-year-old Connie Beard's cold case. Connie's friends and family described her by saying she was warm, kind, loyal, and a fiery young lady. On July 17th, 1998 in Dalton, Georgia, Connie decided to sleep over at her boyfriend's house. She stayed the night without incident, and early the next morning, her boyfriend left for work. Her boyfriend ended up being the last person to see her alive, as when Connie called her aunt, which was tracked as still being at her boyfriend's house that morning, to see if she made it home alright. Connie proceeded to tell her aunt she would call her back, as someone was knocking on the front door. After those last words, Connie's family, boyfriend, and friends never heard from or saw her again. It was only 3 short months later, when her family's worst nightmares were confirmed, when Connie's skeletal remains were found in a shallow grave in Maury County, Georgia. So what happened to Connie Beard? And why has nobody been convicted? Well, the boyfriend is not a suspect because he was confirmed to be at work all day. The police have taken backlash, even though this was a small-time case, as when the family alerted the police that Connie had went missing, they pretty much brushed the case off, and the claims. The cops continued to try to convince the family and friends that she just ran away, but she was extremely close with her family, and they all knew she wouldn't do something like that. Some even believed the local police department to be in on the murder, in some ways, trying to cover it up, as the Georgia Bureau of Investigation claimed to be working on the case, but Connie was never listed on their unsolved homicide list. There's not been a single major or minor tip uncovered since the start of the investigation, and the family and friends continue to advocate for a greater attention to look for a resolution. What do you think happened to Connie Beard? As same as the day it happened, a random guess is as good as any.
I just want somebody to come forward and talk and let us know what happened to her that night.
The near-death and mostly skeletal figure you see in this photo is one successful, free, and well-known beauty, Blanche Monnier. She was found trapped inside of a padlocked room. The conditions she lived in were utter filth. The walls, sleeping area, and floor were covered in old rotten food, and even human feces. There were bugs crawling all around the room, and even on her body. Her malnourished body left her being only 55 pounds on the day of her escape. But how did she get there? She was madly in love with the man she planned to marry, but her mother did not approve. And when the love of her life proposed to her, her mother told her to refuse, but she said yes anyways. The mother was so angry at her daughter's defiance, she threw her in the family basement and locked her down for 25 years. It was reported during her 25 years of torture, she hadn't even seen the sunlight once. Sadly, upon release, too much damage was done. She could no longer live in normal society, so she spent her last years alive in a psychiatric institute. A lifetime of happiness stripped away due to a mother's selfishness. Top 3 kids who killed. Number 3. In 1993, 12-year-old Eric Smith was riding his bike to a park in New York. While on his bike, he hit 4-year-old Derek Robbie, who was walking alone. Eric lured him into the woods, strangled him, dropped large rocks on his head, and violated him with a stick. The most chilling detail was how emotionless he was while describing his acts. Today, he's still in prison and has been denied parole multiple times. Number 2. In 1998, 14-year-old Joshua Phillips was playing with a baseball bat when he accidentally struck 8-year-old Maddie Clifton in the eye. He claimed he panicked, so he strangled her and stabbed her 11 times, afterwards storing her body under his bed, which he was caught and sentenced to life in prison. Number 1. In what may be considered the most famous childhood convicted murderers, 10-year-old John Venables and Robert Thompson. They abducted 2-year-old James Bulger in 1993. They took him to a railway line and began to torture him. It's sad to see this happen and such a young life cut short. But their torture included things like throwing paint in James' eyes to blind him, throwing him on the floor to kick him and stomp his body, throwing bricks at him, and dropping a 20-pound iron plate on him. The case pathologist stated he suffered 42 different injuries, so many in fact they could not decipher which one caused the death. They left him there, laying dead on the railroad tracks, causing a train to later run him over, cutting his body in two. They both were only sentenced to 15 years in prison, and were both released in 2001, with new identities to protect them for life. It worked for Robert, but John Venables has personally revealed his identity multiple times, and been in and out of prison since. Some believe their sentence was too short for their crime. Do you think they should have gotten life in prison? It's long believed a secret organization has taken a hold of the world and all its outcomes, hiding the most compelling information to the most wealthy of wealthy elites. But imagine if some of this information got leaked. A hypothetical crack in the most privy of secret material. Someone or some agency would have to be there to bar the information from getting out. The Men in Black. Uniform, black suits. Agency, unknown. Goal, information retention. These Men in Black have been reported to interrogate the most prominent and viable UFO witnesses. They will harass, threaten, and even assassinate to keep the suspected witnesses' mouth shut. Some believe these people to be the most trusted FBI and CIA agents, working closely on the discovery of aliens. Others believe them to be the aliens themselves, with advanced disguises. Whatever account, be at the wrong place, at the wrong time, and you have an unnerving meeting to decide if you can be trusted or have to be taken out. What is the single most you'll understand when you're older thing? Health issues. I know I've been genetically lucky, but after 20, random stuff just starts happening for no reason. It's like Jearrod developing a soy allergy at 35. Who develops a soy allergy at 35? Good people aren't always nice people, and vice versa. Nice is not the same as kind. Nice is an image management. Kind is caring about other people. High school drama isn't even important, like, at all. Understanding why your parents wanted you to go play with the awkward kid, or why they were so keen to help you make friends. It's beyond annoying when your parents try to guide you who to make friends with. But most parents instinctively know that bad social habits start early, are hard to break, and can be a real burden when they are older. The quiet, boring, simple times are the best. Everyone's fed, happy, healthy, chill, napping. These are the good times. And lastly, there's really no going back. You really just have one shot with each hour you get. You just have to make peace with the choice or path you took and keep it moving. You probably know of the world famous neckbeards. They don't often leave their house and build special nests. These are their bedrooms. Things that are actually legal. I'm just gonna have to say, little girls' beauty pageants. It just doesn't sit right with me. Not only because of the fact that it's creepy, but I feel like it's stressful on the kid and on their body image. College book prices and practices. Change a few words in a math book, that'll be another $100, please. Oh, you realize you can use the book from 10 years ago and succeed? Actually, we require you to use a new book. The fact that car radio commercials are allowed to use police sirens or car crashes in them as a way to get your attention. Robocalls. Bothering someone with something they paid for, the size that they X on pop-up ads, and possibly hard to cancel subscriptions. Sweatshop labor outsourced by tech and Fortune 500 companies is essentially contemporary slavery we collectively allow. A parent keeping their kid from the other parent when there's no good reason, and leveraging the court to do it. The troubled teen industry. Parents pay a company to kidnap kids while they're sleeping and send them off to therapeutic boarding schools where they're abused in every conceivable way. Century-old appliances. So engulfed in our daily lives, we forget the things that make our life easy have been years in the making. These are the same items we use today, except 100 years old. Your washing machine probably looks something like this, or this, but 100 years ago, the Thor washing machine was the most popular, mass-produced and in every single middle-class household in the US. Our vacuums look something like this or this, but in 1908, the most well-known in the vacuum industry was the Hoover electric suction sweeper. It actually looks kind of similar to today's, but the toaster is a different story. Everyone has a toaster, but in 1909, for $3, this was the most popular of its time, and it looks pretty sketchy. Lastly, everyone has a fridge that looks like one of these, but in the 1920s, GE's Monitor Top Fridge was the highest class you could get. All still, could keep food relatively chilled. And in the 20s, it was living like royalty, to have your food not spoil in a matter of days. By the time we have great grandkids, our stuff will look just like this to them. Shower Thoughts, a subreddit for sharing the miniature epiphanies you have that highlight the oddities within the familiar. Blaming a younger generation for having it too easy is guilt-tripping them about your generation's achievement of providing a better life for your children. The fact that dogs mourn humans when they die and vice versa really shows you how much we think of each other as family. Wikipedia is our best attempt at a history of everything and one of mankind's greatest achievements, but we all talk about it mostly as a joke. There comes a point in life where people telling you, "Look how big you've gotten," stops being a compliment. Awkward kids find adults easier to interact with because adults are more polite and tolerant as opposed to other kids. The older you get, the more acceptable it is to have friends who aren't your exact same age. For example, it would seem weird if a 17-year-old were to hang out with an 11-year-old, but it's normal for a 67-year-old to be friends with a 61-year-old. 5 interesting stuff. Number 5. The most expensive single shot in silent history. They had 6 cameras rolling at once, just to make sure to get the shot. This scene cost $42,000, around $625,000 in today's time. Number 4. The top video is showing you what you see while you apply sunscreen, but the bottom shows you a video of UV light comparison. So pretty much, applying sunscreen looks like responsible behavior to us, but to the sun, it looks like blackface. Number 3. This is Bob the alligator. What makes her special is she was born without a tail. It's a common birth defect, but for some reason, most that have this defect don't actually make it to adulthood. Number 2. This is the Arctic 88 years ago, and this is a picture of the same exact spot just 15 years ago. And number 1. As robotics AI advance, so did their movements. This is Boston Dynamics' newest project in the field. Don't forget to tune in next time. We wouldn't want you to miss out on any mysterious content, now would we?